Welcome to Women's Special Express. According to World Health Organization, approximately 2.1 million women are affected every year with breast cancer. And out of all cancer female patients, 15% of women's deaths are caused by breast cancer. October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Women's Special Express is fortunate to have expert who is actively researching and working in breast cancer field for more than couple of decades now. She is not only an oncologist but also an oncoplastic surgeon who is expert in reconstruction of breast, providing aesthetic cancer cure to the female patients. She helps women recover and heal both physically and emotionally from their cancer journey and re-establish their self-image, relationships and life in general. She is absolutely a friend to talk to and a genius doctor to seek opinion from. She has taken education from best medical colleges from India and UK. She is also working as an assistant professor of surgery in Grant Medical College, India. She is a best mom who is raising her son to a best human being single handedly. Let's welcome this intelligent, kind, and a dauntless Dr. Rajeshri Kelkar on our show today. Namaskar, Rajeshri ji.
Namaskar.
How are
Thank
you
you
doing?
so much, Pranali, for having me on your show.
Actually, I'm honored to have you on my show. So, how's this lockdown keeping you, and how are you operating in this situation? The latest surgeries that you're performing. I know yesterday as well you had one surgery done.
Initially, to begin with, when India started the lockdown on 22nd March, April and May, there were absolutely no patients. No patients means nobody was allowed to venture out at all. So women who had problems also were just sitting at home doing nothing, and they knew that they had problems, but they didn't know where to go and who to approach. So 2-3 months went just like that, and then slowly, when in June things started opening up, all these women started coming back with different problems such as lumps in the breast, nipple discharges, and things like that. Few patients came with the lumps in the armpit as well. And they have been waiting for quite some time. Yesterday's patient, which I operated, has come from Pune, and she was also waiting for quite some time because people don't know where to go because their family doctors are not working as yet, because family doctors being a little old concept, not too many young doctors are going to become family doctors, and that is why the very senior doctors are not working, and so they're not guiding patients where to go or whom to approach. So I have had patients who have been waiting for last 6-7 months with their breast lumps. They know that it is increasing, but didn't know where to go. So that is the problem now we are facing. We are facing a lot of backlog, you can say, of these onco patients, cancer patients of various cancers, not only breast cancers, but now started to come back with their symptoms, and they are getting treated now. So now we have started last couple of months, we have started operating now.
Wow. So the females who are waiting for a long period of time, the cancer level must have been increased by now, right? And then they have to opt for the future steps of the
yes,
the recovery or the medication.
That is true. Unfortunately, what has happened is they have waited, their disease has increased a little bit. And what is happening is people who are staying far away from the city, from any metros, accessing radiation therapy is not very easy to go every day, because right now in India, the normal protocols for radiation are every day for about 4 to 6 weeks. So that is not possible for them. So even with their breast cancer being small and breast conservation possible, we have done mastectomies for them, which I really feel very sad for them. That and plus, there many people have lost their jobs. The financial worries are there, and surgery plus chemotherapy. It's a huge expense for Indian patients. Right. Because we do not have much of insurance. Only to about 2 to 3% of Indian population is insured, and the government facilities are not up to the mark for anybody just to go and have things done. So people have been, cutting down their hospitalization costs as well. And the COVID has increased the hospitalization cap cost with all the precautions being taken, extra investigations, what they need to do, and things like that.
Oh, that's a sad case to operate with, but that's a
That's
fact
a
that we
reality.
have to deal with.
Yeah.
So before we move on to getting guidance from you on the breast cancer, how to be preventative, how we should be taking all the measures and etc. part, we'll definitely would love to know how your journey began as a breast cancer surgeon or the oncologist.
Um, I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, India. My medical education has been from one of the finest colleges called Grant Medical College, which is a 150 years old institution. Thereafter, I did my post graduation in general surgery, and then I flew to UK. I was working in the National Health Service, the very famous NHS, from 1997 to 2002. And there I first saw the concept of totally dedicated breast units, which were not in India till those times. So fortunately, I got the opportunities to work in some of the good breast units, which was very helpful. And they were doing things which during that time, I'm talking about 97, 98, that those times, those things were not being done in India. So I learned there was a beginning of the reconstruction phase that time in UK as well. It was not as well developed as what it is today. But I had that opportunity to learn new things which were coming up in the breast cancer surgery. And when I came back to India in 2002, I knew that Tata Memorial has also started a breast unit. So I thought, why not be a completely breast surgeon? Because see, there are many onco surgeons, there are many plastic surgeons, but totally devoted to breast are very few. So I deal with benign breast disease, malignancies, and plastic surgeries, cosmetic breast surgeries, and everything. So my practice is almost, I call myself a general surgeon as well, but my 95% of my practice is totally dedicated to breast surgery.
Right. And having a female doctor for the breast surgeon or the breast specialist, I think that just adds on a lot of value because a lot of female patients may not open as widely or as vividly to the male doctors versus to the female doctors. It definitely gives a good hand and a good support system to talk to as a doctor.
Yeah, I would certainly say that. And here, I being a little talkative person, helps a lot for all my patients to open up. They're very comfortable, and generally they routinely follow up, and we are like we become like close friends, and they will call me for any of their ceremonies and things like that. So we slowly become friends because it is a long association, right? It is not only that they have surgery and they are gone. Their follow-ups is that they're regularly they are seeing me. So I think that helps a lot.
Right. So, in case of any medical health related issues, we always say prevention is better than cure because not all the cases can be 100% be recovered. There will be always some kind of scratches. So, if this particular word, when we say that the breast cancer, and now that it is affecting globally, many women, even in their 35, 40 age period as well, many young women are getting affected with it. So, what are the best prevention methods that you can suggest apart from the routine checkup that one can do?
One thing is there that any cancer is not one reason to it. There's not one cause to it. It is multifactorial, what we call it as. So there are multiple factors which are contributing for a woman, for anybody to develop cancer actually. So we need to look into those causes, like starting of your periods. You don't know. That is not in your hands. When a girl attains puberty, at what age she will have periods, it's not in her hands. The same way, menopause is not in her hands. So these are some things which we can't help, or a family history we cannot help. If we have a mutated gene, there is no way we can help anything about that or do anything about that. but there are certain factors which we can certainly look into it and, try and be in a healthy zone, what I would call it as. For example, having a baby. Now, as you know, all women are highly educated and working and starting their families very late. So their first child may not be before the age of 30. And having a first child before the age of 30 is very, very protective against developing breast cancer. So, but I know it's difficult for some women. May not be possible. But if you want to have a baby, then it is better to have it, at least the first baby, before the age of 30 years. That will definitely give you a little protection. And the second thing is doing a breastfeeding. Breastfeeding for 1 year only, if you do, that is protective against breast cancer. But what happens is women generally have about 3 to 6 months of maternity leave and then they are back to work. So that I don't think that 1 year period is covered with good amount of breastfeeding. And that is helpful for the baby as well as for the mother. So I would urge here all the women to do breastfeeding at least for the year, even if your baby starts to feed otherwise. Then now I'm going to come to three major important factors which contribute to increased risk. One is obesity, one is alcoholism, and the third one is smoking. Right? I know obesity is a huge incidence of obesity in the US, and it is rising in India as well in practically all parts of the world. So obesity is one thing what you can definitely look into for your own self and keep your weight under control. And I would rather attribute this to Indian turning to Western lifestyle. The good things are not being taken, but only the food habits are being taken. And I think our Indian diet is also responsible for that. We have a very high carbohydrate, high fat diet and not high protein diet. So obesity is increasing by the day, and keeping your weight under control is extremely important. Now I come to alcohol and smoking. As you know, it is increasing in the next generation like rampantly, completely. And possibly in India also, the next generation, to me, I see all the girls practically smoking, probably less number of boys smoking.
How?
Yes, that is practically the truth. Practically, so many girls I see or young ladies I see smoking. So smoking and alcoholism can lead to many types of cancers, high blood pressure, obesity, including high blood pressure, diabetes, and all sorts of health problems. So these three things are important. Obesity means managing your weight, less amount of alcohol consumption, and no smoking. There is no little smoking or more smoking. No smoking.
Interesting fact that you just listed. So when it comes down to a late pregnancy, again, like most of the cases it can be avoided, but in certain cases it cannot be avoided. So
Right.
in situation, if somebody is conceiving late and they have to their just biological cycles have been delayed for that matter, so what are the other precautionary measures that one can take? Breastfeeding is one that we understand, and of course even if the mother has to go to a work, there is always an option of the pumping out milk and storing it and giving it to a child. It's good for child and it's good for mother as well. So those are the measures somebody has to work consistently. But there are different problems that the mothers, lactating mothers, are facing nowadays, that they're not getting enough milk. And then eventually they stop pumping, eventually they stop giving milk to a child. So in such situation, what are the measures that one can take?
See, Pranali, for a good breastfeeding, you need to have a mind of that mother dedicated to the baby. That is most important, right? Like you're working on the computer all the time, even if you're working from home, and then you're trying to breastfeed your baby, even if you're home, doesn't work like that. Because first thing, what you should have is stress-free mind, and of course, a lot of nutrition. So working women in work, like all your software engineers who are based in US, or corporate level people, your stress levels are very high. It's your stressful jobs. And the moment you start working, many women would agree with me that they would have noticed that their amount of milk supply reduces drastically with that. So one is maintaining a good nutrition, which is healthy diet, high proteins, good amount of calciums, then vitamins and minerals, and everything what you can think of which is good for your health, right? No meat. I would rather ask you to have chicken and fish, but no meat. Meat is not good thing for, because it is related to many types of cancers in the Western countries as well. So I think you should have a balanced diet, and of course the calories, because you are eating for two people. That one should keep it in mind. And most important for a woman who's breastfeeding is to be happy. If you're happy, stressless, and taking enough rest and the diet, you will have enough milk.
Wow, that's a success formula that many women don't know, and they keep creeping about it. I think it is something that one should definitely look into, because in United States, especially before the baby is born, people are purchasing the formula boxes and keeping it ready.
Yeah, yes, true. That is not a good idea. That is, at least till you're at home, you're for 3 months, 4 months, whatever, your baby should be on full breastfeeds. Complete breastfeeds, no top up milk at all.
So since pregnancy, we come to know about this breast cancer awareness, and people are, especially the doctors, the gynecologists, even the pediatric, they all are guiding about it, and they are all there to guide the mother, saying that one should be taking care about it. Apart from this, when the women is entering into the menopause times, there are some other problems that they face. So what are the other precautionary measures that one can take, the mother who is not breastfeeding?
See, for others, and even I would say for a breastfeeding mother, breast self-examination is the basics, absolute basics. Now, I don't want to teach you that because this is our chat show rather than a medical show. But you can go on to Google and just Google it, how to breastfeed and how to do a breast self-examination, and you will get tens and thousands of detailed videos on that, how to do a breast self-examination. But in my opinion, breast examination should be done by every girl and a woman above the age of 18 years till you are alive, because there is no age for breast cancer. I have seen youngest patient of 24 years having breast cancer, and my own grandmother had a breast cancer when she was 84. So no age group is exempt from this. So breast self-examination is the most important thing. There are some misconceptions about it. You have to do only once in a whole month according to your cycle. So consider suppose 1st of October is your starting periods date. Then you do the breast self-examination on 8th or 10th day of your menstrual cycle. If you have to go for mammography, also the same thing applies, because that time the breasts are most soft and supple. There's minimum pain when you go for mammography during that period. See, people go for mammography also in the wrong time, premenstrual time, and then they'll tell 10 other women that mammography is horrible. So 10 other women are not going for mammography. That is what keeps happening. So you should have a proper timing for doing breast self-examination if you want to go to a doctor or if you want to do a mammography. So if you do a breast self-examination, you come to know how the normal feel of your breast is. And then any change in that could give you a signal that you need to see a doctor.
Right. Regarding the mammograms, there are misconceptions that one shouldn't be doing that every year as a part of annual, but it could be like interval of time they can go for the mammograms because you are exposing your breast to radiations, right? So, what is the right period to opt for the mammograms? Although it can be covered in an annual exam.
Actual mammography is a very low dose X-rays. It is not very high dose X-rays. So even if you do yearly, that is not a problem because many studies have shown that women who are doing regular yearly mammograms also have not got any side effects or development of breast cancer actually because of these radiation. So it is fairly safe to do mammograms. But I would say if you have a strong family history or if you fall into a high risk category that you have never had children, you have never breastfed, you have a family history, you're obese, then you can probably do a regular mammograms. But otherwise, if you're doing breast self examination regularly, that should be fine. And you can do mammography every 2 years or even 3 years. Because in India, the studies have shown that mammographies have not helped. So there are, different countries having different datas, and the UK and many European countries, or even for that matter, US, has opted mammography as a screening tool. So it is difficult. Plus, in India, our mentality is not to go for a preventive health checkup as yet. There are few people doing that, but it is not a general consensus. The consensus is if I have any problem, then I'll see. That is what our mentality still is. So I would recommend that after the age of 40, you should do mammograms for 3 years consecutively. If they're fine, then you can do it every couple of years. But provided if you're going to do breast self-examination regularly.
All right. I think that's a very good input that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So regarding this oral contraceptives, there are also studies that says that taking oral contraceptives may cause a breast cancer. We'd like to know more facts about it. If somebody is taking the oral contraceptives, then how long they should be limiting and what are the other measures that they should be taking if they're taking those kind of pills?
See, oral contraceptives are also estrogens and progesterone hormones. They are basically ovarian hormones. So your exposure to more ovarian hormones will definitely increase your risk of developing all these women-related cancers. So you should, whenever you're taking OC pills, means or oral contraceptive pills, it should be strictly under the guidance of your gynecologist or your family physician, and you should give definitive breaks from taking. I don't think you should take oral contraceptive pills for consecutively 5 years or so. You should give some break. And actually, ideally, if you have a pregnancy, that actually gives you a good 9 months break. And if you are breastfeeding, another 2-3 months of good break from your ovarian hormones. Wow. So that is why pregnancy is important. I know some women may not like having kids in today's area, but see, this is the nature we are talking about, right?
Right. We have been gifted with certain things, and
yes.
we
that is our job.
Right. So if somebody is affected with the breast cancer, the next phase, although all the precautions have been taken, but it's not possible in, today's world, especially when the women are multitasking, doing so many things, they are getting stressed out. Even they're keeping up with their diet and, exercises is not possible at a times. It depends upon the nature of the job that one is doing. So in such cases, if somebody is affected with the breast cancer, then what are their options? How they should be looking into it, how they should be moving on to that journey, how they should be finding their doctors to seek the right opinions and the treatment options. It's a big question.
Yes. But a very important question, Pranali. For that to understand that something is wrong, I would again come back to breast self-examination. Mm-hmm. Because if it is not a breast self-examination, then you would not know that there is something wrong in your breast. or if you start developing any lumps, you will probably know it when it grows, when it has become substantial size. So if you want to detect if anything is developing in your breast, then the basic thing to do is breast self-examination. So if you do breast self-examination every month, you will detect the breast lump if it is developing inside your breast at a very early stage. And
Mhm.
in early stage, when it is only related to loco-regional, means the breast and the lymph nodes nowhere spreaded anywhere in the body, then it can be practically cured, you know. So what you must be hearing now during this October month, everywhere people are harping on early detection of breast cancer. So that is the
Hmm.
reason, because if it is detected early, you're almost sure of almost getting cured out of that. With the new invent of so many chemotherapy agents, radiation technology, and everything, you're absolutely fine with that.
Hmm. Interesting. And there are also been examinations that one should be doing for the armpit if there is any cyst found or.
Yeah, it is a part of armpit examination is a part of breast self examination. So if you learn a proper breast self examination, that would tell you how to go about it.
Interesting. So, all these clinical methods to overcome cancer, there are like, if it is detected in first couple of stages, it's absolutely an awesome place to, get cured. But if it is in a third and a fourth stage, generally the patients or the females, they get frightened, and they're resistant in many ways, even to offer the chemo or the other treatments. Even the breast removal parts are very emotional to a woman. So how one should be looking at it, and how they should be, treating themselves.
See, in my opinion, in European countries and in American countries, late detection is little less as compared to India. What we see is we are still seeing about 50 to 60%, I would say, of our patients detected in late stages, means stage three, what you're calling as.
Mm-hmm.
So the ratio is exactly opposite in the Western countries. There only say about 70% patients are detected in early breast cancer stages, and 20 to 30% are detected in later stages. Right now, there is a lot of awareness being done in India regarding this self-awareness about breast cancer. So that is helping definitely, and women are coming more and more with lumps which are smaller in size. So
Hmm.
the our famous Tata Memorial Hospital is saying that their average size of the lump has now come down to 2.5 centimeters, but
Wow.
it is still very high if you compare with US or the European countries, you know. So we still need to work on that, being made aware about all these cancers development. And there's lots in the magazines, in the newspapers, in the social media going on. So I suppose the next generation would be more savvy about it.
You are also the surgeon or the plastic surgeon who reconstruct the breast after the removal of breast. So can you elaborate more on it, because not many women know about that option, because it is expensive. Another part to it, there are very few handpicked surgeons who are actually doing it when the breast removal part is happening.
Yeah. See, in the Western world, breast reconstruction is the norm now, which is not in India as yet. And there are many reasons. Most of the time, surgeons are not educated in breast reconstruction. We have many plastic surgeons doing the breast reconstruction, but
Hmm.
that becomes an additional surgery, you know, removing the part of the cancer plus reconstruction, or removing the breast and the reconstruction. So that becomes additional surgery, which is a financial burden, which is a mental burden, and it is not something what the Indian women right now is looking at. Of course, as compared to last 20, say when I came back from England in 2002, And right now, I see a huge difference that women are ready for reconstruction. But when you say that there will be added cost, then they are taken aback a little bit because the cost of chemotherapy is huge in India. So for a normal household, if they do not have insurance, then it becomes difficult. And as yet in India, reconstruction is not being covered by many insurance companies. So that is also becoming a problem. I think it will come in next few years. And that is the reason why I actually recently did my education in breast oncoplasty from the University of East Anglia, UK. A certification course basically for doing reconstruction. Of course, we still work with our plastic surgeon friends when it comes to reconstruction. But to be very frank, not all our mastectomy patients are ready for upfront skin sparing mastectomy and an implant or autologous reconstruction. That percentage is very small. And the main reason for that is finances, because we do not have, and these surgeries are not being done in the government and municipal hospitals.
Oh, so they have to opt for the private hospitals.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So after this reconstruction, the breast reconstruction, are there any measures that they have to take care so that nothing gets spread from the other side if it is just a one part that is being removed and
See,
covered?
when you're talking about reconstruction, it is never a one-stage procedure. If you put in an implant, suppose you are 50 and you opt for an implant, you may have to change the implant down the line, say about 15 years or so. So it is never a one-stage procedure that you put in an implant and forget about it and you're fine for the life. It is never like that. So because it is a type of surgery. If you use your own tissues, your own muscle to reconstruct the breast, or you use the implants, there are associated probabilities of complications with that as well. And these complications increase if you're an alcoholic, if you're obese, if you're a smoker. That is also a trouble. So that is why when I was harping on no smoking, that in the UK they will not operate you if you're smoking. They'll not. You'll have to stop smoking for 6 weeks, a minimum, to have any kind of reconstruction done. But in India right now, slowly it is coming in the mainstream that you need to have a reconstruction of the breast, but the number is really minuscule. We are trying to promote that. As you're saying, it is very important from a woman's perspective to have a normal body contour. Initially they are very scared that, sometimes their reaction is just take off my breast. I don't want it. It has cancer. And, I'm scared that they come back and I don't want that worry. Just take it off. Then after their treatment is over, they're fine. Next down the line, 2 years, 3 years. And then they think, why did I take this decision of doing a mastectomy? I could have conserved the breast. So now we've started counseling the patients for breast reconstruction and breast conservation surgery and not heading for mastectomy straight away.
When the patient is in that consultation mode, that is the time when should be getting guidance. Am I right?
Yes.
And that kind of guidance you're trying to provide through your project now.
Yes.
We'd like to know more about your project.
Yeah. I'm just about to launch, hopefully by Diwali, with my colleague, Dr. Aditi Agarwal, who is another breast surgeon, and my friend, Dr. Mahinur Desai, she's a plastic surgeon. So we have formed a team of plastic surgeons and breast surgeons who will be looking into a dedicated unit for all the breast issues. So we will deal with benign, means non-cancerous breast problems, pregnancy-related breast problems, smaller lumps which are non-cancerous, cancers, reconstruction after cancers, or even breast cosmetic surgery. So there is not a center like this in Mumbai right now. So we are just taking baby steps to launch this, our new center, which is called as Mumbai Breast Specialists.
Wow. And that will help, like there will be all type of specialists present who can guide for all the stages at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, we have counselors, we have physiotherapists, we will have breast care nurses, we can provide home visits. Some elderly patients who get the surgery done cannot keep coming back for dressings and removal of stitches and things like that. So we are providing home services as well for those patients.
Wow, that's very nice to know.
Yeah.
This is happening in Mumbai city, but how about the other parts of the India, the rural parts where not this kind of educational help is also available? So, what kind of steps can be taken so that it is available to, at least a guidance is available to understand what it is?
Yeah, I think that is the whole problem. As I said in the beginning only, accessibility for the rural India is the biggest problem right now. And they have a lot of shortage of radiation facilities. That is the most important because they may have surgeons who are doing surgery. They can take a chemotherapy because it is just like taking intravenous drugs. So
Mhm.
all those things can be managed, but the radiation facilities are available in the metros or two tier, three tier cities only. They're not available at a village level or at a rural India level. So, in a big way, the government needs to look into this and provide accessibility so that not only for breast cancer, many other cancers, the treatment depends on the radiation. And if the radiation is not available, we need to have the patients undergo mastectomy or super major surgeries to remove the parts of any cancers vis-a-vis giving a radiation. So I think there's no simple solution to that because establishing a radiation center is a huge cost. And unless there's good number of patients coming to those centers, it is not possible to set up centers. Like you will have ultrasound centers in every small cities, every small towns and things like that. But it is not possible to have radiation centers in a smaller places.
So that's a challenge to
Yeah,
overcome.
that is a yes. And I think it is at the government level now that the government needs to look into this healthcare infrastructure, what we call it as.
So, when it comes down to a breast cancer options or the treatment options, there is always an option called as clinical trial. How far a patient should be, opting for the clinical trials? Like from the patient side, how helpful it will be, or how it can benefit them.
See, it is like how you look at this problem or this issue. I wouldn't say a problem, but the issue. Because clinical trials are the trials uh, for the drugs which are not yet tried on humans, right? Which are not yet licensed to be officially as a treatment part to be tried upon. So they're into exactly like what is happening about COVID vaccine, as you know. Everybody is rushing. Of course, it is not like that for chemotherapy trials. But you should understand what are the terms and conditions, whether you fit into the criteria of their selection criteria, and then only they will offer you to whether you want to join the clinical trials or no. And I think it is a personal decision whether you want to go ahead with this or not, because there is no right or wrong. Because at the end of the drug trial, if it has to be commercialized or make available for the general use of the population, somebody needs to try this. So I don't know whether it is a morally right thing to have a human trials, but of course I can assure you that before the human trials are done, they are tried on the animals, and then only it comes for the human trials. So that way they are safe, and of course there are due precautions taken for all the clinical trials. It is not that you're really made the guinea pigs for the trials, but yes, you have to be careful and you have to understand. They will explain to you what are likely side effects or when should you uh, get back to for the trials if there are any other side effects which are seen. So please understand the complete detailed history of what they're trying to tell you before you commit yourself for any clinical trials. What I would say.
I think this is helpful. So one can absolutely understand thoroughly before opting for the clinical trial.
Correct.
Nice. So when it comes to cancer, there are always, the precautionary measures that you would say. There are always suggestions that one should do yoga and meditation absolutely to keep up with their lifestyle. And all these things can simultaneously help them even to prevent cancers. So as a doctor, we'd like to know your opinion on it so that, one can get firm discipline on certain lifestyles.
I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but in my opinion, doing yoga, doing pranayams, and doing meditation helps a hell lot of patients. And see, the problem I feel is that your body and your mind is too much stressed, and in the stress you start developing many of your health problems. So if you're doing regular meditation, it will definitely calm you down. And this I can definitely tell you that people who are doing regular meditation, their blood pressures come down. Their yoga people, so definitely their blood sugars come down, and they are overall much in health rather than in unhealthy zones. Means they may not have symptoms actually about the diseases, but they are into unhealthy zones. I actually recommend all my patients, by the time they are ready for the treatment and the investigations are being done, I always ask them if they can learn pranayams to do. Pranayam is what? A simple breathing exercises which increases the oxygenation to your body. Mm-hmm. And it helps to optimize your body for the health. So I fairly regularly, I wouldn't say I'm regular in it, but I try to be regular in doing my pranayams. I regularly do Surya Namaskars. So I'm of the opinion that pranayams, yoga, and meditation will definitely help you. And see, it is like this. If your mind is very agitated or very confused about the treatment parts, or also, it is not good for the treatment. I always say, I want you to be 100% sure that you want me to operate. I never force. So, if the patient has faith, like we say that if the doctor is good, your half of your problems are, solved then and there. So if somebody has a faith in a particular person, whatever you do, they will be fine.
In most of the cases, when it comes down to a medical related issues, yes, we want our doctors to be 100% sure, and then we just leave all the worries to them.
Yes, true. In the same manner, if you put your faith into somebody, your body also responds in that manner, and your response of the body for the treatment is also much better. That is what I have understood. And I would like to tell you here that before every surgery, I meditate. Before every surgery, I meditate. And I feel that my surgeries go smoothly with that. I don't know whether that has got something to do, or it's again my thinking, but it has definitely helped me also, because these surgeries can be long procedures. I'm dealing with somebody's life, and I have a huge responsibility on that. We are sometimes doing complicated cases, and it definitely helps me.
Wow. Now that you just mentioned about your surgeries and how you're preparing yourself to do the surgery, apart from the educational knowledge, you're also preparing your mental health, and you're also praying divine, I would say, before you operate any
Absolutely.
So is there any particular incident that you would like to mention, as it had just worked like a miracle for you? I mean, you were not so sure and it just happened.
I would tell you, but it is unrelated to breast. it because I'm a general surgeon as well. I had a call once from the hospital from a chest physician saying that Rajeshri, I don't know whether I'm calling you for the right reason or no, but please come down. I have a 35-year-old patient who was sitting in my clinic with lower abdominal pain, and there she just collapsed. So I've just admitted her in ICU. The ICU people are putting in lines, and I want you here. I don't know whether there is anything surgical or no, also. So I was just going on in my mind, and I thought this is ruptured ectopic, and I don't know why. This is probably divine intervention. And I guided the ICU registrar. I said, before I come down, I will reach in 10 minutes. But before I come down, I want the ultrasonologist to be there. And you send her urine, catheterize her, send her urine for urine pregnancy test. I will be there. And by the time I reached the hospital, the urine pregnancy test was done and it was positive. And the sonologists were doing a sonography, and he said, Rajeshri, you're right. It is ruptured ectopic, and it's the left tube which is bleeding. So we just rushed the patient into the OT. It is not my field. Of course, we are, as surgeons, we are trained to do any abdominal emergencies. So I couldn't wait for a gynec to join me. I just informed her that please be on your way. I am opening the patient. And I opened the patient, removed the left side tube, dealt with that bleeding, removed all the, she had a huge bleeding, almost 1.5 liters of blood or so. And meanwhile, the anesthetist was trying to arrange for blood and everything. But we sorted that out. She was back in ICU in 2 hours. And, that day, that was the total satisfaction day for me, that nobody was thinking about that. I don't know, that was a divine guidance probably. And actually, maybe I'm, as you know, in Hindus, we always say, apan nimitta matra. So I was the nimitta matra for, if nobody would have diagnosed her, she would have bled and she would have died actually. And I actually saved her. And whenever I remember that also, she keeps on coming and meeting. I'm in the complete heaven. That kind of feeling I always get when I even think about that. So that kind of satisfaction, I don't think you will get in any of other fields, So I'm quite happy to be a surgeon.
That's true. That's very true. So the breast cancer or any cancer related, the treatments that happens after that, they should be getting a complete support group for the patient, because it's, as you said, it's a long ongoing treatment.
Yeah.
Even after chemos, there are so many other treatments that they have to opt for. Even the maintenance checkups have to be that thorough and disciplined.
Yeah.
So how one should form their own support groups, because most of the time the breast cancer is not just a cancer to be dealt with, but it's a lot of emotions.
Yeah. Yes. Unfortunately, on this we are not doing very well, because the problem is our patients, after the couple of years, they just disappear. They don't follow up. They don't do regular checkups or any investigations or mammograms. That is a start. Once they're fine, they're fine. And what we say is, if we do not hear from them, then all is well. Otherwise, they are back. So, but yes, there are few centers and few surgeons have started those support groups, and they are there, but not as well established as in all the Western countries they are. We need to work on that.
Support is not just for the cancer patients, but there are a lot of other problems that female goes through and they seek support. You are one of the best example that I see, who has raised your child single-handedly. Your child is the one who is taking your name and going forward. He's proud to say that he is Nachiket Rajeshri Kelkar. And we are proud to see that very few Indian women have done that. And when it came down to your support at the time when you had a separation and you kind of dealt with all your situation, We want to know that story because it was a long back, couple of decades back, where in India the divorce itself was, a word that shouldn't be taken out. And you dealt with it, you successfully moved out of it, and you did your career as well as made your son to be a best person now.
And I would thank my whole family for that. You know, without my family's support, probably I would not have been able to do that. In fact, my father used to be always after me that why are you still staying in this marriage? Why don't you move out? You know, my father was my and my both my parents and brother is my brother is a wonderful person, and without their support I couldn't have done that. So yes, when I came back, actually, to tell you the truth, when I came back in India, there were hardly few lady surgeons who were into private practice. They were all opting for full-timers job, and I did not want to do a full-timer job because I had a baby. I was a single parent, and I wanted to give a lot of time to my son. So I did not want to do a full-time job. So I opted for a private practice, and my parents wholeheartedly supported me in that. And luckily, my divorce proceedings were complete before my son even started the school, and that is why before he enrolled into the school, I got his name changed. I said, if his father is not there, then his name need not be there. So I took the decision. Plus, I had changed back to my maiden name, maiden surname as Kelkar, and my whole family would be Kelkar, and I did not want him to have a separate surname. You know, he needed that identity that he belongs to this family now. So I was very strongly of this opinion that I have to change his name and I have to have his name back to Kelkar and not what his father's surname was. So I got everything changed, legally done everything and changed before his school enrolling. So didn't have much of problem on that front. But yes, my parents and my brother were strong pillars behind me. And because our my professional is also such that, you know, I used to operate at odd times. There was nobody, but my mother used to be always with my son.
Wow.
She was there 24 by 7 with him. So it was quite possible. Although I was getting pulled from both the sides, you know, whether to have a career, whether to look after the child. Because I remember one night at 3 o'clock, I was operating and my son called me on my mobile. And when he was awake, I was not by his side. You know? So I said, please call Aji, my grandmom, your grandmom. She will come and sleep with you. He didn't say. I said, I'm going to take time. By the time I came back home, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, with the lights on, he was just waiting like this and sitting so miserably. And, you know, that time I felt whatever you do, your grandparents are there, everybody is there, but nobody can replace mother. Nobody can replace a mother. So, yes, I had my problems of whether to look after the profession life or my life, but I knew very well that I have to give enough time to my son, because when he grows up now, see, now he's not with me, he is doing his engineering in Manipal. So now I have all the time in the world, but that time he needed my attention, you know, and I completely enjoyed the time with him. I have absolutely no regrets that I was a little you know, neglecting my career types of things. But I will strongly say to all the women that you have to give time to your children.
Yes, it
Your
is stressful
responsibility.
for a mother as well.
Yeah, it is very stressful. If you are working out, I used to always keep on thinking, half my mind used to be always at home, you know, when I finish the patients and go home. My I was in that frame of mind for quite a number of years. But then, you know, they also, I think it is very essential for a working woman or for a woman to work even when you're raising a single parent, because the children learn to respect a woman. And I think how important that is. Because in my house, no decision is without my decision, right? So, it is very important. And I think we need to inculcate these habits or this perspective in children that women are no less. And in today's era of domestic violence and whatnot.
Very true.
I think very important.
Yeah, I think it's a very responsible job being a mother. If you have a son, then it becomes more responsible nowadays.
Yes. And in this lockdown period, I made him do all the chores at home, saying that later on your wife will give me galis if you don't know how to work in the kitchen.
Wow, it is absolutely a needed training for anyone, Now that women are working, absolutely they need a helping hand. If it is their own husbands, it becomes more balanced, right?
Yes, true. Absolutely true.
Wonderful to know that fact, being in India when there are like easily servants or the maids can be afforded, still you're teaching your kid that, how to operate in kitchen and other house chores.
He does cook himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to talk and a lot to go over, but let's limit the time and move to the next round. That's a rapid fire round. I'll be asking few questions.
You're scaring me.
Oh no, you can absolutely do well. I know for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, we'll begin then. Complete the sentence. A woman is known by dash dash.
Her own identity.
Wow. What's the next word comes to your mind when we say second opinion?
Essential.
If you are stuck in a public transport with a poor woman who you think is a breast cancer patient, what will you do?
See, for me, luckily, I'm working in a government hospital as well. I can offer free treatments to anybody.
Wow.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes.
If you have to make a movie on a breast cancer recovery journey, what will be the name of it?
Beautiful Breasts.
Oh, wonderful. One book that everyone should keep in their mind, what kind of a book that you will suggest that every woman should read it?
I'm not a good reader, to be frank. So okay, I don't know. That is but that will be a Marathi book.
That's okay.
Yeah. And I can tell you that the name of the book is Partner, and it is by one of my favorite authors, Vapu Kale.
Yeah.
And that's an excellent book. And that will probably teach the men how to behave with a woman or a wife, rather. So the word says itself. The book name is Partner.
Wow. We'll keep that in our mind.
Yeah.
I feel that it's an excellent one.
Yeah.
Now that we are wrapping up the show, we have a very, very precious question. All our guests are mostly the expert masters in their field, and they have done a lot. They have seen a very different type of experiences in their life or in their field of work that they're doing. So from there, we always get a guidance, although it could be a same stereotypical question, but the guidance that we get is very expert and specialized, or sometimes even in the very niche. So I have the same question for you. What kind of a guidance or the advice that you like to give to a working woman who want to pursue her career?
I tell you, Pranali, I'll not guide to a working woman who is pursuing her career. I would rather give a guidance to all women, if you permit.
Yes. Yes.
Number one, self-protection. Because in today's era of domestic violence, when I was working in UK also, I had seen lots of cases of domestic violence. I faced it myself. So you have to protect yourself. And the second one, most important, is be financially independent. Nothing without that. Nothing without that. You cannot take any decisions on your own if you're not financially independent.
That's true.
These are the two things what I would like all the women to follow. You should be able to protect yourself and you should be able to look after yourself.
Right. You shouldn't be anytime dependent.
No, you should not be dependent on anything.
Wow.
And another important thing, you should be emotionally independent as well.
I think that takes experience.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, but I think that's the parents' responsibility, how one should be
Totally agree.
with their kids. Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think my parents have done a fantastic job.
Yeah, we can see the results. And now
making me emotionally independent. Yeah.
Well, it's important, and I think you listed down quite a factual things that people sometimes overlook. Having emotional independence is one of the best thing that a woman can do to herself, because that way she is at a very good position to even raise children.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, it was a very wonderful meeting with you, and especially being in the October month that you kind of gave us the time to come over to this show and to list down all the possibilities and the options to go forward to. It was very much helpful. I'm sure I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. And viewers, if you want to know more from Dr. Rajeshri Kelkar, she has her own Facebook page where she keeps posting lot of information. You should absolutely Google her. She's there. She's there on Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as on Facebook. I think she's a very good resource to understand and overcome the fears from the breast cancer. It was nice meeting with you, Dr. Rajshri Tai. I was very honored to get your time. And if you like to know more guests, or you want to cover any particular subjects, viewers, do mention me in the comment. I will be taking those comments into the serious note and will be looking after for those guests. If you have any particular guest in your mind who can be on this show and can be very much helpful for the viewers, do let us know in the comment. Do subscribe, share, and watch Women's Special Express. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pranali. It was nice meeting you.
I let go of my claim on you. It's a free world. You look down on where you came from sometimes, but you have this place to call